Recently, on Health Matters, Dr. Fundi chats to his son Afika on education, maths, and his book launch.
Performance, yeah. But I thought let me just go in there.
To that point. And so these students never know what a good, like a effective team looks like.
That's true.
We're not shamed. We competed relatively well. There were areas where we were a little bit behind in terms of preparation, but you were still able to be competitive.
Yeah,
basically.
And maybe to add on that, 100 years.
Okay.
And none of us have been alive longer than 100 years. So most people aren't aware of what existed before, which is why I described, you kind of had these two different things. One which was more around the trades. And then FSC. And so math as an art of patterns is that third way of relating to math. Which maybe only 0.1% of the world actually relate to it that way. And so one of the things you find is certain people who think they're good at math will go through the system and get to grad school. And that's when the switch from consumer to producer tends to happen, where the professor will be like, okay, you know this math, and I'll make your own. And they haven't had experience like having to produce. And so that's when they realize, oh shit, I'm like not good at math. I'm good at this like problem solving way, but like when I'm forced to come up with my own math ideas, that's where I realize I just don't have the skill. And so that's that third one is I would say one of the things that's completely missing in most of the system. And so in terms of, I think the original question was remind me the original question. Sorry.
No. It was really, what is it that you found as a problem in the teaching of math? And we are obviously zooming down now to what made you to say, I will be a solution finder to what I've found to be a limitation as far as maths is being taught or consumed. So that's what you've been trying to to explain. So maybe just continue to tell us then, after all of this thinking and everything, and you've decided, I'm going to be one of the people who are going to solve this problem. Right? I'm going to invest years of my time, single-mindedly waking up, eating, drinking, sleeping, dreaming this thing, because that's what you've been doing for the last 4 years. Right? So take us then, have you then found a way, you've been writing a book that is almost like a prelude to the implementation of the solution. But what is the solution?
Good question. So let me go back to maybe the three thing of math, where math is a problem-solving tool, math is a communication language, and then math is an art form. And so my focus ultimately ended up becoming more on the math as a communication tool, which is to say, how can we present the subject differently that makes it easier to learn? And so I like to use an analogy where I think what's tough about math is it ultimately has no physical manifestation. And so let's say, unlike, let's say, music, where you can hear a song, there's no way to hear math. And so what math education basically is today is it's equivalent to going 12 years of reading and learning about music theory and never actually getting to hear a song. And then after 12 years, then you can hear the song. And so that's pretty much what we do in math right now, which is you're just looking at the symbols, but we don't try to get you to actually see the mathematics. And again, the hard thing about this is there's no obvious like sensory way to actually tangibly interact with the thing. So you have to move through these like indirect channels. And so that's where my focus has been on, which is what is a better way to present mathematics? And so long story short, I actually think one of the ways to do that is through using video games.
Yes.
Funny as that sounds.
So use video games to learn maths.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like,
I would not have connected the two. Yes, you know.
Not a lot of people do.
X plus Y is equal to Z.
Yeah.
But now in video games.
So I'm not gonna. How do I put this in a nice way? I think one of the reasons why maybe you wouldn't have necessarily come to that is because, for the most part, video games are a new art form.
Yes.
And it didn't quite exist in the way that it does today when you were growing up.
Definitely.
And so,
definitely.
You, again, I'm not going to call you a timer, but you haven't quite...
I am a timer. I'm definitely a timer, and I'm Gen X, and then you a millennial. You know, look, I've accepted. You know, when you go to the garages to pour petrol, the guys will say, timer. So how much of the petrol do you want to? So I accept, and the guys I work with, you know, production team, you know, they are short of telling me that I'm a timer. I mean, one told me that, at age 50 something, you are going on a skydiving, what. So he was reminding me that at 50 plus, there are certain things you should not be doing, but I refuse to conform.
That's true. You could still play video games if you wanted to.
So you haven't, I would say, necessarily you haven't played a game to know what it is as a medium. And so when I say it's a specific medium of communication, I'm comparing it in maybe contrast to writing or images or video. And there's certain things that video games can do that the other ones can't do. And so one of those is basically it's interactive. And so it brings the audience in where they can actually act, and then that changes actually where the medium, what story is being told, where the story goes. And so that is one of the things, if we go back to this question of agency, which is, well, I was saying right now, the system tends to focus on ideas and less on being able to do things. If the teaching medium itself, with video games, invites interaction, that potentially is one way to help people to build agency, to then use the ideas that they're picking up through the learning system. And so that's one of the things that video games bring. The other one is it thinks about motivation at its core. Which is when game designers make video games, they're really focused on how do I get this player to be interested in what this video game's about. And so in a similar way with education, one of the things that the best teachers are really good at doing is being able to find a way to get the students excited about the subject they're learning. Not all teachers are good at this, and they don't even know that should be part of their job. And so if the teaching medium itself forces you to have to think about motivation, that then gets motivation part of the learning experience from the ground up. And so there's other things I can maybe point to. I think it's a very visual thing, and so going back to math not being presented in a way that is very legible and accessible, you can use visuals as a way to make it more exciting. And so, I don't know, I've got a lot of friends who later on down in life, they're like, oh man, math is kind of cool. Because they'll in the things they're interested in, they'll realize, oh, actually, that's a very interesting, there's actually mathematics. And so like an example would be, I don't know, like fractals. And so I don't know, when you're building like cities, one of the things you find is naturally when there's, I don't know, like city sprawl, it almost looks like the tendrils of like a tree or like the vein system. And so all these things are basically, they're basically using the same math idea and they're just being expressed in different ways in the real world. And so that's an example of where they found math almost showed up in the world. They were interested in that specific thing. And then that got them excited about mathematics. I think finding a more accessible way to present the content is another thing that video games do.
Okay. So now, just to bring you back.
Yeah.
So you are working on this solution. You've been writing the book. It's been 4 years. Is this solution intended for teachers, or is it intended for learners, or both?
Both. And so I like to, when I speak to like investors, I think I like to use like Uber as a metaphor, which is Uber have a two-sided marketplace.
Yeah.
And so they both have a solution for drivers, but also passengers.
Yeah.
And so going to school, it'll basically be a thing that one side is teachers, one side is the students.
Yeah.
But I will say the teacher side is maybe the side that maybe gets slightly more disrupted because a lot of the roles of teachers, basically some of those responsibilities of teachers gets subsumed into what the video game does.
Yeah.
And so there is a question of how does teaching change? And so to maybe just set you up or just put it down, I think what you find is, what you might likely find, assuming this thing, I'm able to bring it to life and it works, is you will get two different kinds of teachers. Teachers that basically are making the video games. And so ultimately they just become video game designers that are making games that happen to also get you to learn a thing.
Yeah.
Then the other teachers basically become more like guides or personal coaches, psychologists who are more focused on the social, emotional side of learning.
Yeah.
Which is so one of the things that people found, for example, in COVID, when the school basically moved into people's households, was the parents realized, okay, school is not just the ideas, it's actually all these other things. And now as a parent, I had to pick up these other things that teachers maybe did, but they weren't necessarily graded on these things. And so a lot of like helping students build resilience, like emotional regulation, again, the thing of like helping with like cooperating with other students. And so those are things that teachers actually do, but it's not part of their job. But what you find is some teachers prefer that part of the job. But because they're not graded on how well they do on that, they try to do that, but they have to ultimately also be an instructor. And so I've spoken to a lot of teachers that actually would love to not have to do the instruction. So again, if video games did that, they would love that. But there are also like teachers who prefer to be the instructor themselves. And they deal with the social emotional things. And so I think they would benefit too, because now they can just work on the actual instruction where while they won't be actually speaking to a student, but they would create a game that then allows them to scale their expertise more than they can in a classroom. And so they can go from teaching, 20 students a year to hundreds of thousands. And so I think it does end up looking like a good deal for teachers as well. But on the learner side, they basically are able to learn in a more fun way and be able to build a lot better competency in the thing. So mastery and actually what they're learning.
So this is not just a solution for math. You are actually looking at how to provide a technology solution that will, in a way, change teaching of difficult subjects or subjects that people find difficult.
That is true. So I will say it's on one hand, I think my focus mainly is on STEM. So I'm interested in using the video game medium specifically to help with improving math education or math learning, but also anything that's related to math. And so those are the sciences as well. Your physics, your chemistry, your biology. Finding ways to teach these through this medium. But I think for various other reasons, you can fold in other things in part of the learning experience. And so I talked about how one of the things that the school system is not necessarily good at is helping learners to learn how to basically cooperate and work together towards shared goals. One of the interesting things about, I don't know, video games is you have this ability to bring many people into a single space. With this multiplayer ability. And so what you could have is basically people learning math. But on top of that, you have these social games where maybe you're broken into like different teams that compete on whatever the math subject is. And so you could basically be learning math, but also learning social skills at the same time. And so I'm not, there's other, basically I'm maybe focused on math, but I'm also looking at other ways to feed in skills that are important for, I would say, the future we're heading towards.
So somebody else with your qualifications will come up with a Facebook. Another one will come up with an X. Another one will come up with, different social. But you chose to focus on this. Is it because you are so passionate about empowering and is there any way where somebody has come up with the solution that you are working on, that you are actually defining in the book that you are about to launch?
So there's bits and pieces. And so maybe one place to start is the idea of educational games is not new. So I would say even when I grew up, I think when I was like 7, there were certain little games that we would have to play. But I think what's maybe new is those games are not fun. Which is to say, if I had the choice to play this game where I'm learning addition or play, I don't know, a game like Fortnite, which a lot of the kids like these days, it's quite obvious which way it's going to go. Most people are going to choose to play the Fortnite. And so when I talk about this idea of the video game medium being new, it only really got going from like the early 2000s. And so we haven't quite explored all the ways for this thing to be used. And so what I think maybe what I'm introducing is, and again, I still need to execute on this, but I have a very clear vision of how we could make these things actually fun, where you have your Fortnite, but then you have this math, a calculus game, and people are actually like, ish. Like, I might actually want to play the calculus game because it's just as interesting. So that doesn't exist today. But I will say I am seeing more and more educational institutions come up that are recognizing the same problems that I've maybe mentioned in the book. One of those institutions is one in the US. It's called Alpha Schools. And so what they've actually ended up doing is they have also picked up on this idea of teachers as guides. And then you have a electronic system that actually does the instruction. And so they don't use video games, but they have these like interactive experiences, and they're mainly for the age group they're going for is, I think, from like 7 to maybe I think end of high school. And what they're finding is these kids are they're really, really doing well. And they're also doing well. They're able to get through the school day in 2 hours. And then the rest of the day is just spent on the other holistic things. And so that's an example of me having these theories and then seeing it actually work out in the real world. And so, but I think the difference in my own direction is I think no one is quite putting effort into how do we make video games good for education.
So is this what is normally referred to as gamification? Or maybe I'm just throwing in
good
a word there.
No, good question. I'm a gamification hater, which is to say, what gamification is I think not the way to go about this. And so if I were to describe to you at least how I see gamification, it is this process where I have this thing that I want to get people to do, but they're not doing it. And so you recognize, okay, there's a motivational problem where I just can't get people to focus on do the thing I want them to do.
Yeah.
And then, but at the same time, you recognize, okay, people like to play games. And so can I maybe take surface level things from video games and then throw them on top of this thing that they don't like, this boring thing?
Yeah.
So the problem is, at the core, the thing is still boring. But then you've maybe added this like reward system where you'll get these points if you keep coming back every day. And so you have this external motivation in gamification. But the problem is when you lose that, where let's say the rewards are no longer issued, or the reward itself, the value of it is too small to kind of to satiate my what I need. You then lose any motivation to do the thing. And so I actually don't like the idea of gamifying subjects. I actually like to describe it as subjectizing games.
Okay.
Where you start off with a video game. It's not teaching anything. It's just doing its thing, and it's fun. You've found people that like to play it, and then you look at the elements of that video game and say, okay, how can we then thread in the subject we care about? And so if you look at it as a spectrum, where on one end it's that boring subject, on the other end it's a video game that has nothing to do with the subject. You're basically starting from the video game side, and you're slowly moving until they've learned the thing, and you haven't gone too deep into the boring side. Yeah. And so that's more or less how I look at it. And so there's very few, I would say, case studies I've seen where they've, I think, done this well. Yeah. And so that does, I think, introduce a bit of uncertainty on my end. Yeah. But again, the reason I sat down for 4 years was to figure out, I think, what exactly needs to be done. And so I'm quite clear on what the road looks like this year and going ahead in terms of implementation.
May I please add on this, right? Yeah. So I'm just going to go a little bit back. Yeah. I liked the part where he mentioned 3 ways in which you can teach maths, right? Yeah. That maths is not just a problem-solving tool, but it's also a communication tool. It's also an art form, right? I think that the problem is usually how we define maths. Because usually when we talk about mathematics, everywhere we think of it as the toughest subject. It's something that is so insurmountable that nobody could do it. Like you are taught that, listen, you have to practice maths every day. That's the only way you will know it. But sometimes it's like we don't even look into the true essence of mathematics. Like, for example, that there are different ways in which it is being taught. And to be honest, this is news to me. I'm sitting here and I'm listening and I'm like, okay, because I've done communications in tertiary, he's speaking about semiotics, which is tantamount to science and signs and symbols. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, so maths is the same way. And we've done such things in communications as well, where even in marketing, we use signs, we use symbols. So it's very interesting to see the link between the two. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Like, again, it's just the language we use is just bad. And so the main problem is just make it more exciting. Yeah. And so I like, one of my catchphrases is like, my goal is to make math sexy. And so
your goal is to make maths sexy, and hoping that by it being sexy, more people
it'll draw them in
will want to do maths.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it's on the onus of the people teaching the math to get that right. And so again, I don't think it's done quite well. And so that's where my focus is really. Yeah.
So you've been working on this thing. You have decided that step number 1 is to come up with a book, which you'll be launching in the next week or 2. Yeah. All right. Tell us a little bit about this book.
Okay. So I think one maybe place to begin is like why I wrote it at all. Yeah. And so I think you were touched earlier on the fact that I grew up drawing.
Yes, that's one of the things that, I mean, from early ages, this guy would spend hours, as long as he's got crayons and lead pencil and a book where he can draw. Yeah. And that led to him being very good at visual arts. In fact, he was the top student at Bishop's. The whole 5 years he was there. And in the final exams, I think he got a 99 point something %, but still he was number 6 in the Western Cape.
Yeah, I was going to say.
You know,
I was not always the top.
Yes, he was 99 point something, but there were still 5 people ahead of him, you know, by 0 point something, you know. So basically he was that good in visual arts. And I'll come back and ask him what advantage did that give him, you know, as he was studying his computer and electrical engineering. But anyway, let's focus on the book.
I bring that up to say, when it came to creative pursuits, my initial focus was more on like visual stuff. To the point where, for the longest time, I didn't feel like I was actually a good orator. Like I didn't feel comfortable as a speaker. Yes. And I think when it came to school, my worst subject was English.
Yeah.
I brought it up at the towards the end, but I always really struggled to tell stories using words.
Yeah.
And so if I were to go back to my 14-year-old version of me and told him, bro, you're gonna be writing a book. Yeah. You know, like what? I hate writing. Yeah. 1, 2, I'm bad at this thing. And 3, I've got these other ways to express myself creatively. Yeah. But I ended up writing a book because when it comes to this question of different ways of communicating, I think this was the ideal, I would say, medium to do it. Yes. I couldn't express everything that needed to be said in image. Yeah. I couldn't necessarily done it through video, partly because some of the ideas need you to really sit and unpack them. Yeah. And so it's hard to do that in video form. And so I wanted the base of this to be in a written form. And I guess over the 4 years, I had to get good at writing. So I still don't know if I'm very good, but we'll see in practice based on how many people read it. Yeah. But I ended up writing it partly because I needed to really clarify these thoughts for myself. One, a lot of it was intuition. And so I needed to write down the story just because when you come to entrepreneurship, the hardest part at the start is just evangelizing what you're working on and getting people to actually get bought in on the story. Whether it's like investors or like employees or even customers. And so I wanted to have a good story to share. But then another thing about, I think, the modern world is in the past, what maybe the hardest thing was creating a product. What you find today is, as you have tools like your AIs and all that make it easier to create things, the hardest part now is distribution, just getting people to care. And so building an audience has basically become the hardest part about doing a thing now. And so I recognized, okay, let me maybe write this book and see if I can start building an audience from day zero and basically bring them with me so that once the actual product is ready to go, I've got people that are ready to buy it. Yeah. And so I don't know, we'll see if I'm able to build that audience. But that was, I think, one of the big differences. And so maybe to give you examples, you can use someone like your Kim Kardashian, where they, for the most part, they didn't have marketable skills when they came on the scene in like the early 2000s.
Well, they had some visual things that made us notice them.
Yeah, they were famous for being famous.
They were famous for being famous.
And so they basically garnered enough eyes to their empire, and then there's a point where they decided to monetize it. Yeah. And so now your Kim, I think someone in the billionaire status. Yeah. And that was possible because she didn't have to spend much effort after making her beauty products to get people to buy them. And so there's become this inversion, I think, when you're working on things today, which is you're probably going to spend a lot of time trying to get people to care. Yeah. And so that's maybe why I've personally done it in this weird way where I'm like writing a book versus, and a lot of people ask, like, just start working on the idea. Yeah. But again, I needed to clarify the thoughts, and then 2, distribution is king. And so. That's why I decided to.
So you are creating or cultivating, you know, a mass of people who will get to know you and your thoughts and your ideas, such that by the time you launch the actual product, then, you know, there is awareness about what this guy is all about, and especially the thinking behind him. Because we hear a lot of stories of staff working at the garage, you know, back room or whatever, and then eventually, boom, they become successful. So you are consciously or mindfully saying the first step is to create an awareness about the who I am, my thinking, my thoughts about this and that, and what it is I believe will solve the problem I've identified. And then you will come up with building now a technology solution based on these ideas, all right, which will then be the how.
No, exactly.